Exhibition season is finally over for Purdue Boilermakers as they win 92-49 over UIndy. We will break down everything that you need to know from the exhibition, what matters, what doesn't, what to take going forward right here on Boilers in the Stands. Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. We are here at the friendly confines of Mackey Arena. First game back in stadium for the season. Purdue gets the 92-49 win over UIndy in the exhibition. You could tell it's an exhibition, I think, from a little bit of the time for sure, but after the loss to Kentucky, definitely some positives to take away, definitely some things to still be worked on. They're exhibitions, right? There's only so much I think you can take away from these, both positively and negatively. But next game is a real game. It starts fully mattering. Kraig, before we get to those real games, though, what were kind of your takeaways from this exhibition that you saw?
I think one thing that jumped out to me was just, hey, this team can really shoot the ball. Because watching that Kentucky game, never really questioned it because these guys can shoot, but the amount of wide open threes that Kentucky gave to Purdue in the last game that Purdue just missed. So it was nice tonight, obviously against lesser competition. We're not going to say that every time we make a statement tonight. So just let's get that blanket statement out of the way against lower competition. But wide open threes are wide open threes, regardless of who's guarding you. And Purdue knocked them down tonight to a clip of, I think, 50% on the game. We're going to get to the stats later on. And it was a little bit of everybody, man. Everybody was knocking down threes. We've talked about how good Benner and West can shoot at times in practice, and we got to see both of them knock down some threes tonight. And then obviously CJ, Jakari, Fletch, just going around the names of everybody basically on this roster, being able to pour in some threes. That was one big takeaway for me. I got more, but I'm going to turn it to you next, just to kind of roll off on yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and obvious caveats, exhibition, lower competition, all of that, right, it's not, I don't think these exhibitions mean somebody is good or bad. It's just more just data points for us to be able to talk about. As you mentioned, the shooting, hey, they can shoot the ball. Who would have thought when you have like 9 good shooters on a roster, shots are going to fall especially in your home arena. I think stood out to me a little bit less aggressive defense than what we saw against Kentucky. We'll talk about that probably more later. I just don't think a super aggressive defense fits this roster specifically. I think you can very clearly see that Painter and company are very much toying around with kind of exactly how they want to try to defend things. Lots of little things to clean up on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, right, I don't want to say Braden probably coasted. I think that's fair. And when you're as good as he is, you earn the right to be able to do that. So even that's, I think the offense is taken with a grain of salt. But like you said, lots of good looks, and against a competition like UIndy, that's kind of the result you're trying to look for within this type of game. So as we said, right, exhibition, all that stuff. But it still was good to just see the ball go in the hoop definitely more this game. You could start to see things click a little by little throughout the game. Jakari was awesome and probably this player that stood out the most. And we'll get to the players in a second. Guess we'll kind of rotate here to the stats as we kind of talk through this game. Looking at the split stats here, won't go through everything, but as we said, Purdue goes 15 of 30 from 3, 50%. UIndy's only 8 of 23, 34.8%. Purdue doubles in rebounds, 48 to 23 compared to UIndy, 21 assists to 8 assists. Also, Purdue does a pretty good job taking care of the ball. Only 13 turnovers. UIndy has 18. Kraig, anything really stand out that you want to call out within the stats shown?
Well, Painter talked all summer about the fact that this team was extremely efficient when they were able to get into transition, and that being a point of emphasis, whether it was off of a turnover that they created or whether it's off of a quick rebound and outlet, that they wanted to get out and play in transition more because of how efficient they were last year, and they felt they could be that way this year. And 17 points, fast break points to me, really jumps out from a team stat here. I think in terms of points off turnovers, it was 29, right, total, I believe you said.
Yeah.
There. So I think both of those just popped to me as points of emphasis that Painter was focused on during this offseason. that at least tonight came to fruition. I don't know that we're going to get that many in a lot of games this year, but he wants it. He wants to see this team get out and go again, even if it's not off of a turnover. If we can get a quick rebound, rip and run, he wants to see it.
Yeah, I think that was something that really stood out to me too. Was just the pace that they were sometimes playing at. A lot of transition threes too, kind of in that early to semi-transition where. I mean, there's one or two where it felt like it was definitely just like 3 seconds in a shot, but definitely a few more kind of where it's, all right, Braden or whoever pushes the ball up and you kind of hit somebody on a trail three just because, right, if Braden's running to the rim, if TKR is running to the rim, if Jacobson or Clough, like you just kind of got to hit bodies down there. And that's where the Loyer, CJs, Jakaris, etc. Can really thrive on some of those trail type threes, maybe not a traditional trail in the sense of like a 5-man, but I think that definitely stood out to me as well. It was good to see them dominate the glass. Like you expect that in this type of game. I don't think rebounding was terrible against Kentucky. I don't think it was great, right? It felt similar to kind of last year's level where it's in that in between. This is the type of performance, like if you're a good rebounding team, you do win the rebounding battle 48-23, and you do win the offensive rebounding battle 16-8. A few of the offensive rebounds felt a little cheap for UIndy, where just Purdue guys just didn't hit guys. And sometimes that's going to happen with switching so much as they do. You're going to get some size mismatches. There we go. But yeah, those are kind of what stood out to me. I guess also, like in addition to the 50% from three, just under 50% of their shots came from three. And I think that's one other thing that really stands out to me is that there's going to be games where Purdue is shooting probably close to 50% of their shots from three. And that's just because of who's on their team, right? It's Braden, it's TKR, like even Clough and Jacobson, like they're going to battle down low. Do you have to at some point teams are going to just be like, all right, Jakari, CJ, Jack Benner, like you guys beat us, and if you do, great. But it's a lot of those kind of weak side skip passes. Like there's just going to be times defenses sell out, and Purdue has to simply be able to knock down threes, and obviously they were able to do so today.
Yeah, and another thing that jumped out to me was just the balance, scoring wise. You know, when we talked after the Kentucky game last week, it was like, hey, like I get our big three are a big three, but if they're not hitting shots, like we know there's dudes on this team besides those three that can knock down shots. And you saw them actually run some action for Jakari to get him an off movement three when he really got going. And this wasn't just like in crap or this wasn't in like the games of blowout time necessarily when
Garbage
the
time
started. Garbage time. That's the word I was looking for. I was scared to say crap.
I got
time.
you.
I'm like, I can't say that. But it wasn't all that, because when this game got cut to 10, Jakari hits, and we'll talk about Jakari more in a minute, but he hits back-to-back threes right in that stretch. And we saw CJ knock some stuff down. We saw Jacobson get active early as well in this game. So I felt much more comfortable with the overall balance when this game was still like within 10 to 15 points, you know?
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair to call out. So I guess before we get into some of the individualized player breakdowns, this can kind of be the segue into that is the rotation chart. Anybody watching on YouTube, if you are a longtime listener, you know what this is. But for any new time listeners, this right here, rotation chart, just indicates what player played at what minutes. Take it with a slight grain of salt, obviously, with some of the weird substitutions that coming at not exact minutes, but very spread out rotation today, as you would expect in an exhibition of this capacity. Jacobson comes in very early because Clough gets into foul trouble, and he also does start the second half. I think both of those things are noteworthy. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Jakari gets a good chunk of minutes in the first half off the bench. Everything else, I think, more or less what you expect. I think the one difference today compared to Kentucky that I remember is in Kentucky's game, Loyer stayed on the floor during the first substitution when Braden went off the floor, when Braden and TKR both went off the floor. This one, he also went off. Not sure if that was just kind of how they went. It's just something to keep an eye on. I think Painter's gonna try to mess with and see, okay, can I get away with having Braden, Loyer, and TKR all off the floor at the same time, right? And if so, the thought process is, okay, You just kind of have to stay even for those 3 to 4 minutes, and then you're able to get all three back in, or do you try to keep one in and just kind of work from there? So rotation chart here. Anybody that's watching also, please give a like. It just does help us out. If you're watching live, comment down below, or even after. Definitely let us know what you thought of the game and kind of excitement level going into the season. Also subscribe, as this is postseason show number 2 of hopefully like 42 this year. So Kraig, anything stand out of the rotation to you? Obviously it's exhibition and a widespread rotation today in general.
Yeah, minutes 7 through 4. Those 4 minutes right there, Joe. I did not like those minutes. Okay. And those minutes would be minutes where neither CJ or Jakari were on the floor. I think there is a noticeable defensive drop off when one of those two players is not on the court right now. And you did mention that there was minutes where Fletch was off too in that rotation, where CJ and Jakari were both on the court together. Quite frankly, I'd love that rotation where, to me, they are best defensively. Like, their best defensive lineup is with CJ and Jakari out there. Now, obviously, not quite the same scoring punch, but it'll be interesting to me because you think about that. Like, can Painter get away with all three of those guys down? They're not going to score as efficiently, probably. Not going to generate as many points. But if you've got CJ and Jakari on the perimeter and you've got Daniel Jacobson in during that rotation protecting the rim, you may not have to score as much, because I quite frankly think that is probably our best defensive rotation that we have at any point in the night. And immediately, right after those 4 minutes, that's when they cut it down to 10 points.
Yep.
And then immediately after that, Jakari goes off and hits a couple threes in a row. We start creating some steals again. You could just see it. I mean, as plain as day.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where, right, we'll talk. We'll see whether West red shirts or not. He would be the guy in those minutes where you would love him to get to that CJ Jakari level. May not be there right away. I think we all recognize the ceiling is absolutely there, though. That'll just be one of the decisions we'll find out over the coming days. There was a couple comments. There we go. Blake Whitmer said, Joe, did you accidentally gray out Liam as a walk-on? I would like to see him get more minutes. He looked good tonight. It's supposed to be like non-rotation, and I probably should keep him in yellow for the time being. More of just, to me, he projects to be non-rotation. He'll be back in the yellow, more of just like a bench guy until further notice, and then we'll see kind of where his minutes go. But it's not specifically walk on. It's just guys who maybe won't be actually a part of the rotation. Nothing really more than that. So, anything else rotation for you stands out, Kraig? I assume probably not.
Not particularly. I do have to ask, though. You just brought Blake up there. Blake lives in Jamaica, so Blake, in the comments, let us know that you're obviously commenting on the show. So your brother messaged me the other day and joked around that he was probably going to find out whether you were okay or not based on whether you commented on the next Boilers in the Stands show, because you're a committed listener. So we hope everything's good down there for you, at least. Obviously, a lot of devastation around the country, but hope everything's okay.
Yeah, was not aware that he lived there. Definitely glad to see you commenting, and obviously hope everything is okay on that front. We can get into some of the player breakdowns now. I think there's a very clear person that we are going to start with, and that would be one Jakari Harris. Has a very big game, obviously, in an exhibition. He has 20 points, 4 rebounds, shoots 7 of 10 from the field, 4 or 5 from 3, goes 2 of 3 from the line, plays 18 minutes, and also adds in a block and 2 steals. Jakari was just the best player on the floor tonight, and again, exhibition, yada yada, all that. But even you don't expect this level from Jakari every game. I think that's unfair. But even with CJ last year, right? You didn't expect CJ to go for 15 every night. But you knew in the back of your head, like, oh, if CJ sees one go early, like, he can go for 15 to 17 points. And we know that's true this year as well. I would say early signs, and emphasis on early signs, point that Jakari also might be one of those guys that can might be viable for a couple games where he just gives you 15 plus points. And then I would argue he's probably the best perimeter defender on the roster. Him and CJ are very, very close. I wouldn't be mad if somebody said CJ over Jakari. he's just kind of molded into this all-around player that fits really well alongside really whoever. If you want to play him alongside Braden and Loyer, awesome. He can be kind of that third guard and just be a catch and shoot guy, and then a prime defender. If you want to pair him with CJ, they both can do that. You want to pair him with like Meyer and somebody else off the bench, like he can kind of do that role too. So to me, he feels like one of the more out of the role players, probably one of the more adaptable players that Purdue has, and it's very good to see that there's this upside to him.
Yeah, and I mean, last year really, he did so many things well, but he just didn't shoot the ball well for so long. And then even when he did start to shoot the ball well, it felt like he didn't have quite the confidence into like, all right, I knocked one down. I'm going to go ahead and pump up 3 or 4 more the next time I get a little bit of a look, but it's there now, and he is extremely confident in it. And my note was just like, Jakari was aggressive from the jump tonight.
Yeah.
When he first got in, he drove baseline, shoots a little floater, beats his man, misses it, but TK's in prime position to get an offensive rebound and put back. And then shortly after that, he hits a 3. When they had the lineup in where him and CJ were in there together, they were running some actions for Jakari that they normally run for Fletch, right? Where he's like coming off of movement, whether it's a handoff or whatever, and somebody's setting that screen up at the top of the key, and he's coming around and shooting a shot, that 3 off movement, that first one that after they had cut it to 10, then comes back down, hits another one. Thought he was really good defensively tonight as well. Right now, quite frankly, it seems like there's a little bit more aggression out of Jakari in terms of feeling comfortable attacking than what there is CJ. Now, I don't know that necessarily means that Jakari needs to start over CJ, because I kind of like having that aggressive punch when he comes in with that second rotation and one of the starters goes and sits. I don't know that it matters whether it's CJ or Jakari that start. They're both going to play a lot of minutes. I know we did a minutes breakdown in the preseason. In all honesty, like right now, I would probably change it to both those guys are playing 25 minutes a game, looking at them going through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think I had both at like 19 or 20, and it probably would be bumped a little bit as well. Yeah, I think I'm with you of like, I don't actually care who starts. And there's gonna at some games you just ride the hot hands. Obviously today was a Jakari game, so you're just gonna ride the hot hand more. And actually, I mean, he still played 2 less minutes than CJ. Probably would like, yeah, just if he's going to play even close to this level, you just want to kind of keep getting him more and more minutes. I think we'll talk about Meyer later. Obviously, he's going to take a little bit to really be able to come on and thrive. But Jakari and CJ are going to be fine filling in the backup 2 and 3 while he's still kind of adjusting and maybe not playing a super heavy workload early on. Yeah, it's really good to see how aggressive, like you said, how aggressive Jakari was. That was my first note on him too. It's just playing with confidence, playing with aggression right away, and Purdue is going to need that out of both CJ and Jakari. Right, I think those two get compared a lot by all of us, just naturally because they play very similar positions. I agree. I think Jakari's more aggressive of a driver. CJ's probably a little bit better, like pure shot creator on the perimeter. It's going to be fun because there's going to be random games where they both go for 15 or 20 points, and it's going to be very fun. And I think I think you have a lot more confidence this year playing them both together. You could do it some last year, but it was kind of like all right, let's see what happens. This year it's more of like I think that's a really good line. That's going to be, I would bet Braden, CJ, Jakari closes some games this year. I would think that probably happens.
No doubt. If we've got a 5, 6, 7 point lead and they're just trying to get some defensive stops and still feel comfortable in what they're doing offensively, would not shock me at all. At minimum, we already saw it last year. Painter will do that offensive defense substitution as well at those end of those games. So I'm going to peel back a little bit on my 25 minutes a game because I just ran the math in my head and I was like, okay, that only leaves 5 minutes for Meyer. So I'm going to go down to like 22 minutes a game for both of those guys. And then that leaves like 11 minutes a game or something like that for Meyer to go there. Braggs, we're going to get to you. We are following a strict script tonight, and that's coming up in a little bit.
He did say to end, so at least credit to Braggs for that.
Okay.
Let's jump to Daniel Jacobson. I would say if Jakari was 1A for who popped today, Jacobson was probably 1B then. He ends the game today with 10 points, 8 rebounds, one of them being offensive, 2 blocks, and a steal. Did have 4 fouls and 3 turnovers, but goes a perfect 5 of 5 from the field. I think if I am allowing myself one like overreaction, I guess, to the exhibition games, and I don't think this is a hot take in any capacity. Purdue just looks better with Jacobson on the floor compared to Clough right now. It flows a bit better with him and TK when he's in with TKR. I think this roster suits defensively what Jacobson does more than what Clough does, right? Where Clough's this kind of high hedge, super aggressive guy. Jacobson's a little bit more conservative, kind of deeper drop, keeping guys in front, just more traditional to what we've seen at least over recent years from Purdue, excluding last season. The shot blocking's there. The one kind of critique I have from this game that I've really noticed is like when he rebounds, he doesn't meet at the apex of his, and I know he doesn't have to jump much to go get boards, but like he lets the ball get to like his chest a lot of times before grabbing. And so it's not even that he like brings it low, it's just that he like catches the ball low off boards. I think right, it's nitpicking, and he had an awesome game. That was like the one thing that really stood out, was just like, all right, kind of have to keep improving on the glass and kind of aggression there, but otherwise, like, yeah, really good game from him. And I think Purdue's ceiling goes where Jacobson goes right now.
I agree, and I'm a little surprised at that, just from what I saw at practice this summer. It was interesting, though, because every time Purdue would have a full scrimmage, not just like scrimmage at the end of practice, where Purdue has this weird point system where you also get points for steals and offensive rebounds and other things like that, but true game type scrimmage, Jacobson popped. And Painter said, Daniel's more of a gamer than a practice player, basically, is what he said in one of the interviews post scrimmage. And it's showing up right now. And I'm totally with you that I think Purdue's highest ceiling is if he continues to grow and improve and does the things that we saw him do well tonight. Now, we're playing a Division II team who doesn't have a lot of big guys, and a decent amount of rebounds and or makes tonight were just, I'm 7 inches taller than you. So, the question is, to me, as good as he looked tonight, when we get up against some big physical bodies, and I don't necessarily mean they have to be over 7 foot, but guys that are 250 pounds and built and are laying into him and trying to push him around, if he can hold up and he can meet their physicality, then I think he can become that guy. But I think that's still yet to be proven. But man, there was a lot to like. That alley-oop where he catches the ball from Benter, that was like complete stretched out reach to throw it in, doesn't actually dunk it, but kind of throws it in. Just showed great hand-eye coordination and just how monstrous his wingspan was. And then that alley-oop dunk from Fine at the end, where he catches it behind him, and inherently, it just immediately looks like he rocked it back because of how far he grabbed it back and comes all the way down. He showed some things that like are just next level type things for a big man.
Yeah, and Purdue is going to need it from him. Even if him and Clough are timeshare, like his 20 minutes have to be very, very impactful. But yeah, like you said, like I do think he looked like, even in against Kentucky, I thought he looked better than Clough. But also, it's 2 exhibitions. Like we'll talk about Clough in a second. But keeping with Jacobson, like, yeah, he just really good. He is a very big lob threat. What, I think 3 of his buckets today come off lobs. He did have one nice kind of post look right at the end where he had like maybe an 8-10 foot kind of push shot. We'll see if that's something that continues to develop. Does that stay out of foul trouble? Had 4 fouls today in only 16 minutes. Right, there's going to be games where he's going to have to play close to 25 minutes in that game, in a game, and just kind of has to be able to avoid some foul trouble there. So obviously little things to keep improving on. He's only played 1.25 of a real college basketball game, so we expect there to be a little bit of learning curve and improvements there as well. Getting to the first guy of the big 3 that we'll talk about in Fletcher Loyer, in a game where I'm honestly about to read the stats. Didn't realize he had this much. 16 points on 4-6 shooting. Goes 3 of 4 from the three. 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Did get fouled on one of his 3-point attempts. Tosses in a rebound, an assist, a steal in only 18 minutes. Loyer loves shooting in Mackey Arena. I'm gonna
Oh,
on
yeah.
the side look up his splits. I'll kind of let you talk about Loyer while I do that.
I just love that, and we heard all offseason from Painter that he wants him to shoot more. And we heard Fletch talk about Painter telling him, shoot the ball more. But, when you have a window, shoot it. And in both these games, he didn't hit him in Kentucky, but in both these games, he's been super aggressive. If he's had any sort of a window at all, you saw him sidestep and then put one up in this particular game. He shot him in transition. He shot him off movement. He shot him off of kickouts. It didn't matter. If he had a window, the ball was going up. And I think that's only going to spell good things. I don't think we're going to see very many games at all this year where Fletch shoots the percentage that he did at Kentucky. And if he's aggressive and he's shooting threes, it's only going to mean good things for everybody else in terms of opening up that middle.
Loyer shot last year 53.7% from three in home games. That's insane. And then his away games, he was a ho-hum 42.2%, which is still an insane rate there as well.
That's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, 42.2 would be like what, top 50 or something like that, and top 100 in the country. Loyer likes to shoot at Mackey. He's had more than a handful of games here now. I think what's the one thing that two things stood out to me with Loyer, and maybe this is very much something they could have done last year, and I just didn't pick up on as much. But through these two exhibitions, it's really stood out. And shout out me for not remembering the board, so I can't show you guys, but I will bring it up at some point because they're going to keep doing this. They are, whenever there is a Braden Smith like high pick and roll, especially today against UIndy, who with their 5-man was more in more of a high hedge. They are running weak side action for Loyer a lot, whether it be a pin down, whether it be a flare, or sometimes even just him simply lifting from the corner to the wing. There was at least 2 to 3 of his shots or actions today came from, okay, Braden Smith's running a pick and roll, and as this is happening, there's somebody setting a pin down in the weak side corner for Loyer to curl. And so, right, that I think to me is just really good use of spacing. It's really good use of player personnel where, right, there's going to be times where you just want Braden and TKR to operate and give them as much space as the lights go out on me. We'll figure out exactly how this happens. This will only happen in the exhibition today. They don't shut the lights out on us for the rest of the season. You're just going to get eerie Joe Jackson, I guess, for the rest of the show. They did not like me talking about Loyer pin downs, I guess. But it's just a good way to keep the defense honest while, right, they kind of you have to guard Braden and TKR, and now here comes one of the best shooters in the country coming off a pin down. So that was one thing. The other thing is like he's just again pretty much in the right spot defensively. There are times like he has to travel a long distance in a short period of time, and that doesn't always work great, but it stood out. He's just more often than not in the right spot defensively.
Yeah, and if you're just tuning in, guys, we did mention at the top of the show that this is our Halloween episode, as that comes up on Friday. So we are sponsored by the local costume store. Yeah, I don't know that there's much else to say on Fletch. I love any game where I don't have to talk about the fact that he was getting hunted on defense. We saw that in the Kentucky game several times where they were just trying to get a switch onto Fletch to get that matchup and go at him. Didn't stand out at all tonight from that standpoint. So I love that on top of the shooting that was there. TKR and Smith both here, Joe, just felt like, okay, like they had a game, it seemed like Braden was trying to do more about getting everybody else involved. He did have 7 assists, but really wasn't even looking for a shot at all. It was like, all right, we're going to make sure that everybody else sees some shots go down before our first official game, feels good about themselves before we start the real season. And for Trey, one thing I will say, I do feel like Trey really felt active on the glass tonight. It felt like he was making it a point, especially on offensive rebounds, to really, really attack the glass. So I did love to see that out of him. Are there any concerns from you that the last 2 games in a row, like the hook and the floater, just haven't looked the same as they did last year right now?
A little bit, because like it's not even just that he's missing it. It's that like I can't quite describe it yet, and maybe I'll go back and watch some floaters from last season. It just feels like I don't know. It's like he's like snapping his wrist a little bit more or something. Like it just something seems just slightly off. So it's not a major concern. It's more of like a hey, I'm gonna kind of keep monitoring this, and maybe by game four where he's shooting like 60% on his floaters again, we're like, oh, okay, that was just a random little chunk. But I think it's at least worth monitoring. Agreed. That was something that stood out though was his aggressive on the glass. That's really my only big note I had from him today was really aggressive on the offensive glass. Just felt like he put himself in the right spots. And then, like you said, Braden, when you're this good, not that he took the night off by any means, but I think he was like you said, making sure others got involved. Was definitely just kind of trying to set everybody else up. No, no real takeaways on what Braden did tonight because I think he has multiple more levels to him, and we will definitely see them when the time when it needs to happen. So, also I am like staring into my phone flashlight, so we'll see how my eyes are after this. But at least I don't look incredibly scary. Maybe just a little bit at this point. Only a few more guys that we'll talk about. I think a couple more we'll hit on a little bit more independently, and then maybe group a couple towards the end. CJ today he ends with 7 points on 2 of 3 shooting. All of those coming from three, 1 of 3 from the free throw line. Sometimes he sneakily struggles from the free throw line. Adds in 3 boards, adds in a steal. Kraig, thoughts on CJ from today?
The thing that always jumps out to me about CJ is he's so dang efficient, whether he takes 3 shots or 12 shots. And we rarely ever see him take 12 shots. But there is the random Alabama type game, you know. Although if I remember that line right, I think he had 16 on like 8 shots in that game, if I remember. But or he maybe even less. But nonetheless, he's just
Um, can somebody in the comments let me know if you can hear me right now? They might have shut the Wi-Fi off on us too. I don't even know if I'm lagging or not. Yeah, just somebody let me know if you guys can even hear me right now. Okay, as long as I'm not super laggy, hopefully. Oh, and it might have just went out. I don't even know. I'm just gonna keep talking. So, I don't really know what Kraig was talking about because he cut out on me way earlier than what was shown. I think we were talking about CJ being efficient, and yeah, like I said, he only takes 3 shots. He still gets 8 points, or 7 points. Like a solid game. Nothing right, nothing super big to take away from me on kind of either end. Just kind of right. He's a solid player. We know there's going to be games he really, really pops. We know there's going to be games where he only takes 1 to 2 shots. He plays good defense and just kind of works from there. Yeah, and so right, that's just kind of the takeaway from CJ. Sorry, we're still trying to work through the technical difficulties as I'm trying to also keep this show going. Yeah, so apparently you guys can hear me. Maybe you can hear Kraig. Maybe you can't hear Kraig. Um, oh, wait. Oh, no. We had it. I had it. And there we go. We are back fully, I believe, now on Boilers in the stands.
they can't
Appreciate
shut us down, Joe. They
no
cannot shut us down.
as hard as they try. We will keep talking for like 10 to 15 more minutes. Um, I rambled about CJ and kind of word vomited about, hey, CJ's good. Some nights he's going to be super eye popping. Some nights he's not going to be in, but still play solid. Anything else from that on CJ? I literally have no clue what you said about him. I'm going to be honest.
I just said that he's super efficient. And when you have the big three out there, your other two spots, you have to have that. They have to be efficient, whether they're shooting 3 shots or whether they're shooting 10 shots in any given game. And you want that consistency over and over again. And every time you look at his line, it just feels like he's super efficient. And I think that's one of the reasons that so far he's kept that spot in the starting lineup. Let's go ahead and move on to Clough. I just feel like he doesn't feel comfortable out there yet. Just playing with Braden, like they're not quite connected in terms of receiving that pass, where that pass is going to come from for Braden, where Oscar wants that to come from at certain times when he is trying to like get him going offensively. I felt at times in the Kentucky exhibition in the first half of this game that it's like, where's this super physical guy that was just dominating the glass in practice and in scrimmages in the preseason? And then it felt like he got in foul trouble and went to the bench. And then there was like a segment in the second half where it just felt like, hey, I'm the biggest dude out here. I'm getting everything. And he gets 2 offensive rebounds in a row, gets a putback, I think, on the second one. Then over on the other end, immediately rips a defensive rebounder away, knocks 2 or 3 people out of the way in the process of doing so. And it's like, okay, that's the Clough that we've been told about. Now, again, not playing against the biggest lineup in the world. Need to see that against Big Ten type competition or Power 5 type competition. But it was nice to at least get a glimpse of it, right? And what did he finish with rebounds in this game? 6 or something like that?
I think 5, 3 offensive rebounds, 2 defensive rebounds.
On how many total minutes?
16, because he got into foul trouble very early.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of per minute standpoint, I don't know what the actual percentages were or anything like that, but you're not bad from that standpoint. But it was just nice for that little window, at least, to see him assert himself. But it really feels like it. And we're going to talk about some of the other new guys, whether they're transfers or incoming freshmen or whatever in a second. But when we were talking before we came on the show, it was just kind of like, it feels like with all the new guys right now that they're trying to feel their way out. And that's to be expected. First 2 games, even though they're not real games, first 2 games that any of them have played on with this team, it just feels like they're thinking things through both offensively and defensively, and not everybody is connected completely in terms of, again, where am I most comfortable receiving that pass? Where do I need to put that pass for this player? Those types of issues.
Yeah, I think that last part is what I really wanted to hit on. And I would lump Meyer into this. We'll talk about him next, but you can like visibly see that Clough is thinking. He isn't just playing right now. Like he is thinking, how do I fit? Where do I need to go? And right, there are times where it's just like, okay, by the time he can process all of that, the shot's are already up, and that's where it's hard for him to get into position for rebounding like we expect him to be. Right. I started out on the show like I think the ceiling goes where Jacobson goes. I think I've kind of thought that all off season. That doesn't mean Purdue like doesn't need Clough. Like they still absolutely need Clough, and maybe the roles are a little bit different. Where maybe Clough is more the 15-minute a game guy. I honestly I do again against UIndy and even again against some of their bench. But like you said, you saw kind of that spurt towards the end where it was a little bit less thinking and more just playing. I also think there's some like, does he actually kind of fit better with that second unit when TKR is off the floor and you do have Benner in? And Clough's going to have to learn how to play with TKR still. Like there's no getting around that. But I think there is going to be a reasonable discussion of, okay, should Jacobson start because maybe he fits a bit better right now with TKR. Maybe Clough fits a little bit better when you have a pure stretch at the 4. And obviously there's going to be some overlap in between. Not completely out on Clough by any means. Just has to become more comfortable. Just has to find his way, and there's also I think that may potentially like as he starts learning more, I think the staff can make it a lot easier for him too to just simply be like, hey, go be physical, like go be you, go rebound the basketball. And that's just going to come with a little bit of time.
And to me, it's completely in regards to Clough and how Clough fits in. Like, I don't see anything when I watch that's different than when First was out there relative to TKR of like, he's in my space or he's messing up what I'm trying to do on the offensive end. It's more to me, it's just Clough isn't sure how he's supposed to impact the game right now. And again, like you said, just thinking through it. Let's move on to Meyer. We saw him whip a full court one-handed pass that was a perfect dime to Antoine West. But similar things out there. The offense seemed to get a little bit more methodical, slower. Seemed like he was thinking through what he wanted to do and how he wanted to try to set somebody up in the half court. Struggled in his jump shot today, whether that was a 3-point shot. Well, that's all he took was threes, other than the drive that he made to the rim where he scored and got fouled. Does finally hit a three later in the game, but some struggles there early on. I guess, is your takeaway right now that like he's going to get there? It's just going to be a while or take some time.
Yeah, I think he's in the Clough boat of like, okay, you can see he's kind of thinking, you can see he's figuring out, okay, when do I attack, when do I facilitate, and it isn't fully natural yet. I think you saw it a bit towards the end of that second half, and right, take that obviously with a grain of salt, but I do think you started to see a little bit of him become a little bit more comfortable. He might like Clough is going to probably have to like really figure out and process how he works alongside everybody. I think Meyer might be more of simply just he's got to just keep getting minutes. Like it's gonna come. I think he's a really good processor of the game. I think he like from an IQ standpoint, from an intellectual standpoint, like I think he understands the game very well. I think it's just a little bit fast. It's a little sped up for him right now. And so it's just going to take time. I don't, again, similar to Clough. I'm not out on Meyer. I think Purdue still will need Meyer at some point this season. I think they're with the leap Jakari and CJ are taking may not be as urgent, but right to get to, if we are to get to absolute Purdue ceiling, like Meyer is a, I don't know, 15 to 25 minute a game night guy in that scenario if they're reaching their absolute ceiling, because right, you see the flashes, you see some of the passes he's able to make. He is not shy on his shot making, so it's there. Just have to give it some time. Two small things. I know we're trying to kind of wrap this up soon. One, I'll start with the negative and then I'll go to the positive. When he comes off the pin downs, he comes off really wide, like into those handoffs, where like his pull up three is like the only look that he can get. And that was one of my worries with him, was his driving ability. I didn't think it was his finishing ability wasn't great, even at like on the Israel team. But he's not even giving himself the shot right now on some of those looks on the handoffs where, right off those handoffs, you're playing against more bent defenses already. Those are the opportunities that he should be able to really be able to get downhill, and he's just coming off really wide. The positive, though, that I noticed, I thought the off-ball defense was good, and I don't even know if he had a steal or anything, but just some of the switching and things like that on a night where Purdue's switching, just it's going to need to continue to be worked and cleaned up for pretty much every single person involved. I thought he did a pretty good job of understanding where he needed to be, making the right rotation. So there are a couple little things like that that I think were positive. We're going to kind of.
I want to see him get to his mid range. Like, to me, that is by far and away the best part of his offensive game. And it's been too much settling for threes. Get to that 15-footer, man. Like, he is awesome when he gets into the middle of the court and shoots from that 10 to 15-foot range.
Yeah, definitely. Two super chats going to shout about really quick before we get to the last group of players. Amit Patel says, love Bits post game. How about Aaron Fine? 3 assists, 2 rebounds in 2 minutes. Way to go, bench. Boiler up with the $9.99 super chat. We do appreciate that. Yeah, Aaron Fine's fun. He is somebody. He's one of the walk-ons that like could go play somewhere if he really wanted to. Obviously, there's a reason though that he wants to be at Purdue. And then also $4.99 super chat from Bonner Boiler Ball. So we appreciate those. Last group of players is we're just going to kind of lump Jack Benner, Antoine West, and Liam Murphy into one. I'll throw up the stats here. Benner's going to knock down threes more than this. Like, I promise it's going to happen. Do think, to me, he's pretty clearly the backup 4 between him and Murphy. Murphy did come in and absolutely stripe one. And right, there is, even if Murphy isn't a rotation player, there is something to having your 10th guy be just an absolute sharpshooter off the bench that can randomly come spark for a game. But no, I like, obviously the shots, Benner's probably 1 for 8 between the 2 exhibitions from 3 or something like that. There's still a lot to like. I think he understands the offense well. I think he understands where he needs to be well. And the shots are going to fall. West, like, he is the one newcomer on this team that he does not think or he is not thinking, he is going out and playing is what I meant to say. Like he is just going out there to hoop, and that's kind of the player that he is, where he's not shy. And I know what he shoots. Man, there's so many players that played today. Where is he even
3 of
at?
8. 3 of 8.
3 of 8 from the field, 2 of 6 from three. Got a couple to go. I think you see right. He's an incoming freshman with a high ceiling, and there's also going to be times where it's just like, oh, he's a freshman. I think we saw a little bit of both of those tonight. We'll see whether he redshirts or not. Yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the three.
He put up 8 shots in 15 minutes. He took the third most shots of anybody on this team. He is not shy. Look, I've been high on him all summer. I said after the Kentucky game, it probably looks to me like maybe that red shirt is waiting for him, but ultimately he's the one that's going to decide that, right? The coaching staff will talk to him. He decides whether he takes that red shirt or not. But he is not shy, and I think he has a really, really high upside. I'm glad everybody else got to see him knock a couple of those down and get to the rim and hit the 2 as well, because we saw it during practice a lot this summer. Let's get to Greg's real quick here before we go to play of the game. So Greg says to end, well, I guess it's not the end, but we're doing it now, Greg. What was your biggest surprise tonight, Joe?
I mean, biggest surprise was just when Jacobson both of the lobs that he threw down, from just a pure like, oh, I did not expect that to actually go in. I would say biggest surprise was just the amount of shots that Jakari took, and I think that's a positive. But right, you just don't expect Jakari to be your leading shot taker in really any game. Obviously, some of that's a little bit of Braden, TKR, Fletch maybe not being as heavily involved as usual, but still, I think that was the biggest surprise. Biggest concern is definitely Clough. We've talked about, like, I think he's going to get there. I'm not concerned about what he looks like right now in January, because I do think he gets there, but that is right. Purdue needs 40 minutes of at least solid center play, and that's kind of the level Clough has to get to.
Yeah, my biggest surprise is Jacobson. Just the fact that he looked so comfortable and was impactful in 3 different phases of the game in major ways. My biggest concern is still, even though it was good tonight, like I'm still just a little worried about the rebounding. I want to see Clough. I mean, I guess this comes back to Clough, but like I want to see proof that this team is going to be able to rebound against super physical teams like Michigan State and teams that we struggled with similar to that last year. Joe, play of the game for you. I feel like we're going to end up gravitating to one of the same two.
But I'll throw in something different because I'll just go to something completely kind of off base. There was one specific play where Purdue. Shout out me not having the board, although with the lighting, I probably couldn't even write on it anyways right now. They run, it's basically, it's called like an out screen or cross screen. It's wedge screen. There's different variations. Basically, pin down for Jakari, to then flows to the weak side wing. He gets the ball, flips it immediately back to Braden at the top of the key, and that's immediately into a step-up pick and roll. Play of the game for me was it because Braden, like, knew... it was one of the plays where Braden just knew everything. Like, as he was coming off the screen, he knew it was a high hedge, and like it was one of those, he could have hit TKR on the short roll. It would have been a tighter window, and TKR would have been a little contested. But like Braden just knew with the pre-motion before that, Jakari's guy was way coming in, and so Braden was just like, all right, let me drag out this big, let me throw a one hand skip pass across the court, hit Jakari completely in rhythm, who was lifting from the weak side corner, and drill 3. So just some of the layers to the offense, I guess, is the summary for that. Would be kind of the play of the game. There's multiple you could pick from, but that one really stood out because that was one of the plays where Braden was just Braden.
I should have known you were something that they're going to pick some play that involved like 3 different steps, and the combination of those 3 steps, like all together to just flow into a perfect play was going to be like how you went about this. But I'm going to keep it simple. For me, it was the Aaron Fine to Daniel Jacobson lob.
That's the play of the game. That is the play of the game.
Because, I mean, his ability in that moment, just his hand-eye coordination, quite frankly, his flexibility, athleticism, ability to body control in the air to be able to do all of that. It looked like an NBA lob and dunk, man, in terms of just how far he reached back to get it and how far he brings it up to dunk it and the force with which he did it. If it would have been a full Mackey in a Big Ten and game environment, that might have
Yeah.
set a new decibel rating record, which we know now because it's constantly flashing on the news signs here in Mackey. Game ball for you tonight? No, I'm going first this time. I'm going first.
Okay.
Game ball for me goes to Jakari Harris. It's got to. Just did everything well tonight. Was most impactful tonight in the moments that looked the scariest, just in terms of the game getting a little too close for comfort going up against UIndy. It's got to go to Jakari Harris for me.
Are we need to make the rule right now? Like, can we pick the same player or no?
Yes.
For the rest of the season? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think we can. I think we can.
Okay, then it's Jakari for me as well. Jacobson would have been the pick if I didn't have to. I also keep looking. Like Loyer had 16 points. I don't know where those came from, but Loyer was really good. But yeah, no, it's Jakari. Like he. If you get anywhere close to that Jakari, this backcourt becomes just even more dangerous. Like he coming into the season projected to be probably the fifth option out of the backcourt. And if that's your fifth option, there's going to be some W's that rack up. So yeah, that's kind of going to wrap it up for this show. Purdue plays their first real regular season game November 4th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time tip, and that is against Evansville. It's going to be on Big Ten Network, so going to be able to be nationally televised, or what is Big Ten Network nationally televised? I don't know, but not a Big Ten plus game. Also, it's on Tuesday, so if you are a college basketball sicko, there's a far less amount of games on Tuesday, so you'll be able to kind of focus more on Purdue itself. We will be live after the game for sure. Sometimes we'll be live pretty much 10 to 15 minutes after home games. Sometimes it might be longer. Just kind of depends on presser and availability between the three of us for how we are able to go about these shows. There's a couple star comments. We can get to them quick, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, we need to get to this one, the super chat here.
Yes. Olive Jazzer with the $10 super chat. We do appreciate the support. Said, so Painter pays big dollars for Clough and Meyer, and yet they look lost in Painter's admittedly complex schemes. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I would use the word lost as more of it's taking a while for them to process. I think they know where they're supposed to be. I think it just right now it isn't as fluid as you want it to be. And right, I know I mentioned this after the last post game, but we're like with First, even though he wasn't he wasn't a threat offensively, he knew where he needed to be in the fluidity that which he could move. I would say let's come back to this comment in like January, and I think that's where we could have really a more kind of like real opinion, I guess, on the way this question's worded.
Yeah, those two weren't brought in to win in early November. They were brought in to make sure this team made it to the Final Four, and it's going to take some time. And I think we got to remember, Clough kind of got hung up in Australia waiting to get his paperwork reprocessed and didn't get over here until right at the end of July, I think. And then they only had like a couple of weeks, and then they went on break. Meyer didn't get a practice with the team at all until they started things up into August, early September. So we're looking at a really, really short window for both of those guys. Like it's going to take November and December.
I would also add, especially maybe more so with Meyer than Clough. Meyer is a freshman.
Yeah.
Like I know he's been super hyped and we know what the talent is. We know what the ceiling is. And I'm not saying we should just, hold him to any other kind of random freshman in the Big Ten or anything like that. But like, right, we know he's good, but also he is a freshman who, as you said, got here late. If Meyer wasn't so hyped this off season, we're not talking about him the way that we are right now. We're only doing it because we know what the ceiling can be. If this was just another freshman that Purdue recruited where it's like, oh yeah, solid player is going to be something in a year or two, we're talking about him a lot differently. I'm not saying we shouldn't hold Meyer to those expectations, but there is also that aspect as well. Jeff Parks, but also we do appreciate the support and the super chat. If anybody ever wants to get their comment for sure shown, feel free to do that. Jeff Parks says, do we hear from Payne in the next few days that Antoine is redshirting? If I had to say yes or no, I'm going to say yes, but it wouldn't shock me either way. Do you have anything?
No, it wouldn't shock me either way. Me coaching staff will talk to him. West will make his final decision at some point, obviously before Tuesday. So,
yep. Last comments before we get out of here. Kyle Thomas says, any chance Painter shakes up the starting lineup for game one? And he says maybe Jakari or Jacobson. I think I'd be much more surprised to see Jakari, especially right. We did see Jakari start last year, and he was just more comfortable coming off the bench. Some of it might just be simply he was a freshman, and it just he wasn't there right away, and eventually got there. But Painter's talks about some guys are better coming as starters, some guys are better coming off the bench. Jacobson would be the one where I wouldn't be shocked if he is starting the next game.
Yeah, would not shock me either the way he's looked, and like going back to Painter saying like he's a gamer and he shows out in games. So, Painter's got to see that when they did true full scrimmages, which I think they did 3 or 4 in the last month or so. And then you got these 2 games. So maybe that's enough that it creates the switch. Somebody did tell me in the radio comments after the game that he said Jacobson should have had 3 or 4 more blocks tonight, that he wants him to be even more aggressive, chasing the ball and trying to keep him away from the rim. So I don't know. It'll be real interesting to see whether something happens between now and Tuesday, or more interesting to me, does something happen between now and Alabama?
Yep. And I think that is very fair. So that'll do it for Boilers in the Stands. Purdue 92-49 over UIndy. Purdue plays Tuesday, open up their season, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time tip on Big Ten Network against Evansville right here in Mackey Arena. Should have a preview show out sometime between now and then. We'll figure out exactly when that comes out. But if you subscribe, turn on bell notifications, you'll just get notified as soon as the video is posted or that we go live. So, and Kraig is now throwing stuff because we went over our time limit. Just throwing a tantrum, has to get out of here.
I'm sorry. I was trying to pull my plug out and it smacked the computer. And yeah, hey,
it's time to go.
It's the scary Halloween show. It fits.
There we go. So yeah, preview show will be out sometime soon. Make sure to like and subscribe on your way out. Turn on the bell notifications so you'll get notified as soon as we go live, as soon as we post a preview, as soon as we post an interview, anything like that. We do appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you Tuesday after Purdue takes on Evansville.